Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to The Takeout. The indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, gone. The cases were rushed and of such dubious legal foundation that career prosecutors resisted. That included the interim U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert, who resigned before he was about to be fired by President Trump over this very matter. Trump then posted on social media that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, should hurry up and prosecute Comey and James. Then came the appointment of Lindsay Halligan as interim U.S. Attorney, and the indictments soon followed. There is a lot to get into in today's judicial ruling nullifying these indictments, and Scott MacFarlane will, as always, guide us confidently and ably through that. But one thing stands out, at least to me. When Halligan's appointment was challenged and appeared on shaky ground, the Trump Justice Department did something very unusual. More than a month after Halligan's original appointment, it said she was not only interim U.S. attorney, but also a, quote, special attorney, doing the attorney general's legal bidding, and that this special status was retroactive. Considering Trump's request of Bondi to speed up prosecutions, this made the legal chain of command, how should we say, abundantly clear and bothersome to the court. Accepting this approach, the court said, quote, would mean the government could send any private citizen off the street, attorney or not, into the grand jury room to secure an indictment so long as the attorney general gives her approval after the fact. That cannot be law. And so it is not the law. The White House late this afternoon said this is not the final word. James Comey has had plenty to say. We'll get to that. Scott MacFarlane joins me here at the desk. Scott? Comey indictment gone and to never come back?
It looks fatally wounded. The one against Letitia James looks grievously wounded. Okay. There's a Monty Python joke somewhere in there. We'll leave that for another time. This thing was always dangling by a thread. Mm-hmm. It was from the start. There were so many things weighing down on these two cases. The allegations of vindictive prosecution. In Comey's case, an allegation of a mishandling of the grand jury, allegations of literal truth, that Comey can't be making false statements if what he said is literally true. But this is the one that cut the thread, the unlawful appointment of a prosecutor. You can't get past that, in part because, as the judge said in her 29-page ruling, this is the only prosecutor who put her name on the case. This is the only prosecutor who faced the grand jury that secured the indictment against James Comey and the grand jury that secured the indictment against Letitia James. There's no backup. There's no second chair.
James Comey had a video that he put together that he released right after this was announced. Let's watch some of it.
I'm grateful that the court ended the case against me, which was a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence, and a reflection of what the Department of Justice has become under Donald Trump, which is heartbreaking.
Comey also added this about what he thinks might still come his way. Let's watch that.
I know that Donald Trump will probably come after me again, and my attitude's going to be the same. I'm innocent, I am not afraid, and I believe in an independent federal judiciary.
The question of statute of limitations looms over this prosecution, does it not?
Yeah, the White House said that the facts of the cases haven't changed. They're trying to suggest or indicate that they will proceed again, but the statute of limitations is gone. I think one of the arguments that was being made here by the defense is that they were rushing things in the James Comey case to beat that deadline, that 5-year statute of limitations for criminal misconduct that allegedly happened in September 2020. But to resuscitate it, there's all kinds of thresholds they're going to have to surmount, in addition to the ones that were weighing down that thread from the start. The allegations of vindictive prosecution and the allegation that there was something going on with the grand jury that shouldn't have happened, that they saw a second copy of an indictment that wasn't shared with the entire grand jury. Those problems haven't gone away. Oh, by the way, they have to find a prosecutor to run this office, the U.S. Attorney of the Eastern District of Virginia, one of the most powerful, largest federal prosecutor offices in America. And in this case, they'd have to find somebody willing to bring these cases, which obviously others were not willing to bring.
And you said Letitia James's case grievously, not fatally wounded. Why is it in a different category?
Still faces that hurdle of they got to find a prosecutor to run the office who's willing to bring this case.
But the statute of limitations isn't an issue there.
They haven't surpassed the statute of limitations, which it opens the door quite much more widely than it is with James Comey. It doesn't preclude anything.
Got it. Scott MacFarlane, as always, brilliant. Thank you so very much. CBS News legal analyst Caroline Polisi joins me now for more analysis. Caroline, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Break down what you conclude from today's judicial actions.
Yeah, well, Major, as Scott was noting there, we really just got a really small slice of analysis here. The judge today was ruling on a consolidated basis with the Tish James motion to dismiss and the James Comey motion to dismiss because they had similar legal arguments, which was that Lindsay Halligan was not lawfully appointed. So we didn't get into any of these other issues with the material facts of these indictments. So the issue today was literally only whether or not Lindsay Halligan was appointed lawfully by Pam Bondi under the Appointments Clause of the Constitution and statutory law. And what the judge noted is that no, she was not. There is essentially one shot. The Attorney General gets one shot at appointing an interim United States attorney when there is a vacancy. And after that 120 days, the authority to appoint an interim United States attorney goes to the district court, or the president can make an appointment and have that appointee confirmed by the Senate under the Appointments Clause. And so the government can't simply do an end run around the law and the Constitution in order to put whomever they want in that position ad infinitum, essentially. So that was the narrow issue here. Scott hit the nail on the head. I think there was some ambiguity in her ruling with respect to this rebringing of the case potentially. It's not her issue to decide how to move forward, but the case does leave it a bit ambiguous in the case of Comey, how they would proceed, whether the statute of limitations will essentially end this case. But even in the case of Tish James, Lindsay Halligan will no longer be serving as the as the acting United States Attorney General in the Eastern District of Virginia. So the DOJ will have to find somebody willing to indict these cases again that is appointed by the district court or affirmed by the Senate, and that is a tall order.
And Caroline, you're familiar with defense tactics. If you're a defense attorney, and there are many for James Comey and Letitia James, do you look at today as basically a slam dunk, we're forever in the clear, or at least part of a legal background that if you need to, if the indictments are reintroduced, you have more behind you than you had when this day began?
Yeah, not a slam dunk, maybe a three-pointer, because remember what both defendants were asking the judge to rule here was dismissal with prejudice, meaning a full stop dismissal. The DOJ cannot rebring this case. The judge decided that the remedy in this instance, even though Lindsay Halligan was unlawfully appointed and that it's an invalid indictment in each case, that the dismissal would be without prejudice, meaning the DOJ can, if they can get it together, they could re-indict. But because the facts of these cases are so shaky and the substance, remember Scott was pointing to all these issues in the grand jury, particularly in the Comey case, issues with how they obtained the evidence, issues with how they looked through that evidence. There are a lot of ways that this case could fall. Yes, it's a win for the defense today, but trust me, we will not, this is not the end of these cases. We will hear appeals and potentially the cases will be brought again. It's not over, but huge win for the defense for sure.
And if it comes back and we need further education, analysis, and guidance, we will turn to you as always. Caroline Polisi, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.